Hello and welcome once again to another episode of my YouTube cricket channel, the SNS Cricket Diaries. As usual, guys, I'm trying to do videos as frequently as I can, but with a lot of work constraints and all, it sometimes gets a little tricky and difficult. But today I'm again back with a very, very special guest, a very special person on the SNS Cricket Diaries who has been following my YouTube channel. And in fact, we did one episode long time back. About India's tour of England in 2002. I have with me a cricket writer and a freelance journalist, Mangesh Puranik. Thank you so much, Mangesh, for being here.
Thank you, Siddharth, for having me. It's always been a pleasure.
So, Mangesh is not just about cricket, he's much more than just cricket. He has, in fact, his YouTube channel called The Big Match Theory, where he does analysis of the latest football matches that happen, especially in the Premier League. So, Mangesh, you and your friends who run that YouTube channel, you guys are doing a fantastic job. So, which is your favorite EPL team, by the way?
Yeah, my favorite Premier League team is this team. It's Man United, and yeah, look, currently it's horrible. It's terrible being a United fan. But yeah, I mean, so since I started watching football in 2002, for about 10 to 11 years, United won almost everything. And that's so the biggest problem that we are facing right now, that we bullied so many rival fans, and now I mean
Now you're
we're
getting a
just
taste
silent. We
of
can't
your own
do
medicine back, yeah?
getting a dish of, yeah, exactly, getting
No,
it
in
back.
fact, I mean, I've never followed the EPL that closely. I've always followed football when it's been either the Euros or the FIFA World Cup. But
Yeah, yeah,
I do remember in the 90s, in fact, as well, Manchester United used to be majorly winning most of the leagues and most of the trophies as well. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's sad to see them at the state at which they are. But we are here to talk about cricket, Mangesh. But firstly, tell me a little bit about yourself, Mangesh, for our viewers who may not know you, and where do you live and what do you do?
Okay, so I live in Thane. It's a city very next to Mumbai. It's almost like Mumbai. You do it takes another just 5 minutes to go to so from Mulund, Mumbai starts, and I live in Thane. The next station is Thane, and I'm an engineer. I worked in technology for about 12 years, and my last job was with Reliance Jio. In
Mhm.
Jio, I was working on, so IPL was live on Jio Cinema in 2023. Now it's Jio Hotstar, and I used to work on that project. But after 12 years of working in technology, I kind of got bored. I thought I need to give at least one shot to something that I'm really passionate about, and sports, especially football and vintage cricket, has always been my passion. So I decided to give that a shot. So right now, we have a podcast called The Big Match Theory, and me and a couple of my friends, Rohit and Abhishek, we cover the latest and the greatest of the Premier League, or latest and greatest of football, but mostly Premier League. It's a fun channel. We talk about football trivia and football. We talk about quiz, and since we all are football and sports nerds, a lot of other sports nerds who are like us, they follow our channel. And if you are a if you are a footballer, please do follow the Big Match Theory on Instagram or YouTube.
Absolutely.
And
I'm gonna
yeah.
link the Big Match Theories channel on the video
Yes.
description of this
Yeah.
video, Mangesh. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I like writing about sports, and I worked as a football analyst, and yeah, let's see. I'm in that exploration phase, and let's see where it takes me.
Fantastic. So, Mangesh, of course, you are heavily into football, but you are my guest today on my cricket channel because obviously
Yeah,
you are a wonderful voice and with a deep insight in cricket as well. I know you have not been following much of the IPL, so we'll not talk about the IPL much, but two recent developments have happened, in the world of Indian cricket. That is Rohit Sharma retiring
yeah,
from Test cricket
yeah.
and Virat Kohli expressing his desire to retire from Test cricket yesterday. The BCCI has not given any statement or has not confirmed his retirement yet. So I would like you to talk about these two legends of Indian cricket, Mangesh. What do you think about these two bits of news that has come in?
Uh, see, uh, uh, see, out of all the people I've watched since Sachin retired in 2013, I think Rohit Sharma is one of my favorite cricketers to watch. So Sachin Tendulkar was all about technique and balance and that kind of stuff. So Sachin had a completely different vibe. He had a completely different aura, and Virat Kohli sort of is in that category. But I somehow enjoy watching Rohit's lazy elegance more than I watch. I like watching. I enjoy watching Virat. Of course, Virat is fantastic when he's on song. I still remember in 2016 T20 World Cup. And Virat Kohli made that half century, 70 odd runs against Australia. And that was the time I really felt, oh my God, this guy is really great. And but still, if I have to watch one player out of these two, I would rather watch Rohit Sharma over Virat Kohli. I mean that doesn't mean Virat Kohli is a bad player. He's an absolutely amazing player. But talking about their retirement, it seems like a long time coming. I think Virat Kohli has been he has hit a bad patch, so he's been underperforming for about 5 to 6 years in Test cricket now. I think it's right. I think it's right time to go. I'm not sure if BCCI will let him go before the England series, but yeah, it seems like yeah, yeah, he has had a long career. He has a fantastic career, and yeah, I mean, yeah, nothing but respect for both of them.
Mm. Absolutely, but the one sad thing that I feel will be there with me if Virat Kohli indeed does retire now is he has about 9,230 runs in Test cricket, so
Yeah,
about 800 runs or so away from 10,000 runs, which a player of his caliber should have got. And when he was in that peak form between 2016 and 2019, just before the pandemic hit, he was well on course to get up to 10,000 runs and much more.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But that's not to happen. But I mean, again, that's no reflection of his credentials as a test player. It's just that a
yeah,
player of his talent and his credibility, his achievements, his greatness. He should
yeah.
have got 10,000 runs. So I guess a lot of the fans will have this feeling of a bit of tinge of sadness within themselves that Virat Kohli couldn't reach. I guess those kind of heights in Test cricket that his contemporaries have actually reached. If you look at Williamson, Root, and Smith as well. So anyway, I mean, so that is there about these two players. And
Yeah.
today, guys, I have called Mangesh specifically to talk about a very, very special game. This is the 1999 World Cup semi-final, Australia and South Africa. It was one of the greatest encounters in ODI cricket. In fact, it was
Yeah.
widely regarded as the best ODI game until 2006 when South Africa and Australia played that 4-3-4 and 4-3-8 game. So Mangesh, I want to start by asking you, where were you in your life in 1999? What were you doing, and what were your initial memories of that World Cup?
So in 99, I was just 12 years old. And see, I'll give you a small analogy. So, the kind of bands you listen to, I'll just give you an analogy of related to music. The kind of bands that you listen to when you're growing up, say when you're 18, 19, you're not going to like any music more than that.
Mhm.
So, in 99, I was 12 years old. So the first World Cup I watched was 96 World Cup. But I was too small at the time. I was too immature to understand what exactly is what's going on the pitch. But I think 99 World Cup was like a religious experience for me. Because I remember waiting for that World Cup to start right from the March of 99. And if you recall, Britannia did a fantastic job of marketing it. You had that Britannia Cow World Cup Joy campaign.
Mhm.
So all me and all of my friends were just crazy about it. We used to collect all those. You had that biscuit packets and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the understanding of game was more. We knew more players. So I think as far as cricketing experience is concerned, I don't think any World Cup would surpass that 99 World Cup. Of course, we have won the World Cup after. We have won. We won in 2011 World Cup. But if you talk about the overall World Cup, I think 99 is probably the best World Cup I have watched. And, if you recall, it was probably the last World Cup when we did not have a clear favorite. So from 99, now, of course, Australia won in the end, but from 2003 to 2023, you had at least one favorite. It was more often than not, it was either Australia or India.
Mhm.
But in 99 World Cup, there was no favorite. You had a couple, three teams were favorite. Australia were top teams. Everyone wanted South Africa to win it. Pakistan was a fantastic team. They had great bowling lineup, and even though our bowling was a bit weak, bit weak, but we had the best batting lineup in the entire World Cup. So it was the last time when there was some suspense about the competition.
Mm.
You had some uncertainty about that competition. So I think that uncertainty makes a competition, if we think of a completely neutral point of view, it probably made it more enjoyable because you did not know what was going to happen at the time. So I think that is one point, and the second point was, I think almost every team performed right from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe defeated India. Zimbabwe defeated South Africa, and they reached the Super Six. And if you recall, in the Group B, Bangladesh defeated Pakistan, and
Mhm.
there was a there. I think probably it was the last game from the group stage or second last game from the group stage. Australia were in a situation that they had to beat Bangladesh. If they could not beat Bangladesh, they were out of the tournament.
Mhm.
So, I mean, every player, every team performed. Almost every team had some really good players. Yeah,
Mhm.
Zimbabwe had Neil Johnson, Zimbabwe had Heat Streak, Andy Flower, Henry Olanga. Even Kenya had some fantastic players. They had Asif Karim, they had Steve Ticolo,
Mhm.
they had Maurice Odumbe.
Morris
Maurice
Olimbe.
Odumbe.
Yeah.
And I vaguely remember there was this game between it was probably Ireland and Bangladesh scored, I think, 180 odd, and Ireland could only score. No, I think it was, sorry,
It was
not
Scotland
Ireland.
probably.
It was Scotland. It was
Yeah.
Scotland. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Yeah.
So Bangladesh scored 180 odd and Scotland scored 160. But even that game was really enjoyable. So I
Hmm.
think when we talk about IPL, the complaint I have is that, yeah, it is not an even competition between bat and ball. But 99 World Cup was probably the most even competition between bat and ball that you have ever seen in the World Cup. So yeah, I mean, for me, 99 World Cup will always be special.
Yeah, I mean, you've made some fascinating points about the World Cup, and it was being played in England in the month of. In fact, I think it started on 30th of May, if I'm not wrong, or
Mhm.
probably even before that. It actually
Yeah,
started on the 15th of May,
yeah,
14th,
that's right.
15th of May, I think.
Yeah,
I remember India's first game was against South Africa. So
yeah,
just imagine, playing in May and June. Obviously, the bowlers had much more favorable conditions to work with, so that also sort of contributed to the balance being there between bat and ball. And of course, we had the greatest bowlers on show. I think that the 90s sort of that World Cup sort of encapsulated the 90s bowling that had, and the reason why Sachin Tendulkar, I mean, is considered the greatest because he had to play against those great bowlers throughout
yeah,
that
yeah,
decade.
yeah,
And I still remember, those the videos being a bit hazy because of the the overcast conditions and
yeah, yeah,
clouds, and that sort of helping the faster bowlers. And while we I mean, that was a completely different era, Mangesh.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
We never used to see even 300 being scored that often.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So teams like Pakistan, when they had good bowling attack, they would score about 220, 230, and their bowling attack would then win the games for them. So it was fantastic, and yeah, you're very right that, in fact, I would feel that Pakistan was probably the best team of the tournament till the final. I guess they had such
yeah,
naturally talented players,
yeah,
and some of them would then go on to play the 2003 World Cup as well, which I consider as a line in the sand moment in terms of Pakistani cricket. From where their downfall sort of started, but
yeah, yeah,
they were brilliant in the World Cup throughout. A bit sad that the final was not how it should have been or it could have
yeah,
been. It was a damn squib. But yeah, I think Mangesh, if you talk about certain teams before we come to that semi-final, South Africa, and Australia, both were fantastic teams. They played one Super Six game as well.
yeah.
What do you think about that South African team of the '99 World Cup, Mangesh? What impressions do you have?
For me, before the World Cup began, all of us thought South Africa was the best team in the tournament. But looking back, if you compare man to man, the South African team and Australian team, if you compare the kind of players South Africa had, and looking back, probably only had two great players, two world-class players. They had some really good players, but I would consider Alan Donald and Jonty Rhodes. They were really great. And Jonty Rhodes was not even he was a fantastic batsman in the ODIs,
Mhm.
but he was a great fielder. Uh, if you talk about great players, if you look at Australian side, they had Mark Waugh. At that time, he was on par with Sachin and Lara. People considered him on par with Sachin and Lara. Mark Waugh. You had Steve Waugh. You had Ricky Ponting, who was an upcoming player at the time. Who they had Adam Gilchrist, who was absolutely brilliant. I think we had never seen anything like Adam Gilchrist before. So we had Adam Gilchrist at the time. They had Damien Fleming, who was an exceptional ODI bowler.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
an exceptional ODI bowler. He did Glenn McGrath, and they also had probably the best bowler of last 30 years or 40 years, Shane Warne.
Mm.
So if you compare man to man, I think Australia in terms of quality were much better than South Africans. But what made South Africans special was, I think, Hansi Cronje's captaincy.
Mm.
I think he got the best out of them. He got the best out of them, and we almost had that feeling that South Africans were better than the other teams. But if you compare them man to man, they really weren't. It was Cronje's leadership and the kind of youthful exuberance they had of Pollock and Callis and all those players. Even Herschel Gibbs was an upcoming player at the time. So I
Yeah.
think that made South Africans very, very special. So as I've said it before, I wanted, and all of my friends wanted South Africa to win the World Cup. If not India, let them have it. We all of us had that attitude, and South Africans started the World Cup so brilliantly. Of course, they completely obliterated, not obliterated, but they defeated
Yeah.
us very
Yeah.
comfortably in the end.
Yeah.
In
Although
Super,
we had scored Mangesh 250, which in those days 250 was a pretty
yeah.
competitive total in ODIs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a pretty
Yeah.
competitive total, but they in the crucial stage they completely. I think they haven't completely. I think they haven't Ajit Agarkar, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Agarkar
Lance
used to have.
Klusener, I think in the end sort of took the match away from us.
Yeah, we did not even mention Lance Klusener and
Yeah.
what a great World Cup he was having at the time. Yeah,
Yeah. He was the
so
player of the tournament, by the way.
yeah. He was player of the tournament,
Yeah.
but because of the way they were playing at the time, I think we get a sort of this false feeling of them being the best team man o man when they really weren't.
Mm.
And I think it was down to probably Hansi Cronje and Bob Woolmer's coaching. They were as good as anyone in the world at the time. And even if you recall the Super Six games, they defeated New Zealand quite comfortably. They defeated
Mm.
Pakistan quite comfortably, and the only team they could not beat was Australia. And yeah,
Mm. Yeah.
uh,
So
yeah,
Mangesh, I want to take you back a little bit to before the semi-final. Australia and South Africa had played a Super Six game in the semi-final. This game was played at the Headingley cricket ground, and why I want to
yeah,
take you back is that um, South Africa had scored about 270 runs. If I sort of take the scorecard out here,
yeah,
South Africa batted first, and they made about 271 runs
yeah,
and 271 for seven. And they had Australia on the mat at 48 for three. That's
mm,
when Steve Waugh joined Ricky Ponting at the crease, and they had that fabulous
yeah,
partnership. In fact, Steve
yeah.
Waugh's probably his only second, I guess that was his second ODI century amongst the many few that he had in ODIs, but
Oh, really?
regarded as one of the best ODI
Yeah, I
innings.
did not. Yeah, I did not know that. It was his only second. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and Herschel Gibbs had scored 100 for South Africa.
yeah,
Again, Lance Klusener played well in that game as well. But there was a moment in that game when Lance Klusener bowled to Steve Waugh. Steve Waugh chipped the ball towards mid wicket, and Herschel Gibbs
yeah,
famously caught and dropped the ball while
yeah.
celebrating. So, what do you think about that particular game? And if probably South Africa had won that game, could they have probably won the World Cup as well?
Uh, it's very difficult to say that right now. There is a possibility that South Africans would have won that World Cup if had they won that game because they had the momentum. at the
Mm,
time. So there is a good chance they would have won that game. But this is what separates Australians from the other team. Any other team in that situation would have lost that game, but South Australians did not. Any other team in the semi-finals, just imagine South Africa playing against Pakistan in that situation, be it playing against India, England, New Zealand, any team. And there is only team that was going to come out on top. So I think Australians knew how to grind out results. And it is not just down to having a great cricketing culture, because they have a fantastic cricket. They had at least had the fantastic cricketing culture, but they also have a great sporting culture. So if you recall an anecdote when Matthew Hayden and Andrew Simons, I think they went for a swim in a shark-infested water, and for a swim or fishing, I don't recall it
fishing,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a fishing tour,
Mm.
and for they had, I think, their boat broke or something, and they swam for about 3 hours in shark-infested waters. And while doing that, they saved a friend. So these guys were natural athletes. The mental toughness we talk about, Australian mental toughness that we talk about on the cricket field, that is nurtured right from their childhood. Just imagine swimming for 3 hours in a shark-infested water.
Mm.
And I remember watching Hayden's interview on with Harsha Bhogle, and I think it was on Harsha Unplugged. And Harsha Bhogle asked him, at any point, did you have a doubt about not making it to the end? No, no. At no point I had any doubt about not making it. Now that's kind of mentality. You can't learn it in probably 1 year or probably in a few days. That's not going
Mm.
to happen.
Mm.
So that kind of nurturing and that kind of development they get right from their childhood is something that cannot be matched. That simply cannot be matched. So if you compare any other team in that situation, they could have lost that game. But
Mm.
Australians, along with their cricketing ability, along with the fact that they had probably one of the greatest ODI teams. Of course, we did not know it at the time. It is only after. See, retrospective analysis is always easy, right?
Yeah.
So when we look back, we realize they won two World Cups after. And in
Mm.
2003, where they were even better. In seven, they were even better.
Mm.
So they were better than 2003 and 2007. They
Mm.
had no competition in 2007.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy to say now that maybe had Gibbs dropped it, he would South Africa would have won the World Cup. But I think they would have done something. Australians would have someone would have come out. I think who was playing with Steve Waugh at the time? Was it
So,
Michael Bevan?
I'll have to get that. I guess probably it was Bevan or Tom Moody, I think, at that point
Yeah.
of time when he dropped, when Herschel Gibbs dropped his catch.
So I remember
So,
Tom Moody hit the winning run. So I think
mm-hmm.
Tom Moody came down the order. But
Mm.
just imagine, Australia had one of the best ODI finisher of all time in Michael
Mm-hmm.
Bevan.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
just consider a scenario if Herschel Gibbs catches him, but
Mm.
you still have Michael Bevan, you still have
Mm.
Darren Lehman, so you
Mm.
never know. Australia would have, I feel Australia would have still won that game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
what a fantastic game that was, and
yeah,
Australia
yeah,
winning. So we are still talking about the Super Six game. We have not
yeah,
yet come to the semi-final. So
yeah,
that was a game that Australia needed to win to stay in the hunt. And of course, those famous lines which Steve Waugh has actually not admitted to saying
yeah, yeah.
when Lance Klusener, I mean when Herschel Gibbs dropped him, that he told Gibbs that you've just dropped the World Cup. So Steve Waugh once was asked many years later that did you actually say that? So he said that I would not like to say whether I said that or not, but hey, let's just be with that. I think it makes for a good story. So that was so. Mangesh, we talk a lot about great Australian captains and Alan Border, Steve Waugh, Ricky Ponting. They all do. They all definitely are mentioned for their achievements. But what is it about Steve Waugh that made that Australian team such a ruthless team? And in fact to a level where they were actually sort of branded as being arrogant and
Yeah.
not playing sometimes within the spirit of the game. So but Steve Waugh, what do you have to say about his captaincy, Mangesh?
See, I have a slightly different opinion about Steve Waugh in the sense, of course, Steve Waugh is Australia's the most successful captain, no doubt about that. But I feel any Australian player in Steve Waugh's position, I think he would have been successful. So at the time, I remember Ian Chappell going on and on and on about Shane Warne being a better captain, a better captain for candidate for captaincy than Steve Waugh. And at that time, Steve Waugh was this captain cool. I think he had a very good feel of what group of players needed at the time. But I think looking back, Steve Waugh, whenever he was under the hammer, I don't think Steve Waugh could get the best out of that situation. So if you recall in Kolkata, once VVS Lakshman and Rahul Dravid they started hammering Australians, Steve Waugh could not do anything. Now, if you recall, there was this series in New Zealand, in Australia. First, there was Australia-New Zealand Test series. It was followed by the tri-series of Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and this was Steve Waugh's last series as an ODI captain. And in that series, Stephen Fleming went for the kill. And Steve Waugh at Gabba, Magra had to deploy the negative lineup, negative line and length. He was bowling it really wide, and Steve Waugh received a lot of criticism at the time. So. I think if Steve, of course, Steve Waugh wasn't as bad as we are making it out to be right now. Of course, he was a fantastic player. He was a very good captain. But whenever he was under the hammer, I don't think Steve Waugh uh, could give his best or could get the best out of his team. I would really like to know what you feel about this.
I think Mangesh, yes, Jeffrey Boycott once had said that even my grandmother can captain this Australian team. Just because the greats that they had.
Yeah,
But I believe yes, Steve Waugh towards the end of his ODI career sort of had faded away a bit, but that's natural. But I guess he I would say that he was the one who made this team really a
yeah,
tough nut and a great champion team with his captaincy. I mean, I don't seem to remember any sort of particular strategies that he's famous for, but
yeah,
I guess
yeah,
just the ruthlessness with which he played and his team played. I mean, come to think of it, winning 16 tests on the bounce means that there
yeah,
must have been a lot of dead rubbers as well along the way.
yeah, yeah,
But then he ensured that they were focused. Yes, of course, there was also a time when they did lose a lot of dead rubbers.
yeah,
But again, that just shows that how what a champion team they were. So I feel that I mean I would say that Steve Waugh was one of the best captains. He never lost his
yeah,
cool. He
yeah,
and when the chips were down, he came up with some crucial knocks. We are just talking about that Super Six game, and even some of his test knocks have been under a lot of pressure.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
do feel that I mean he does go down as one of the greats. But yeah, I mean a point can be taken from what you're saying. Some specific moments in the game, like I mean losing to India, which sort of famously made other teams never enforce a follow on. Till I guess England did recently against New Zealand
yeah,
and
yeah,
lost.
yeah, yeah. I lost.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, but the good thing is that again, coming within what happens, Mangesh, many times that the Australian cricket culture is so strong and so integrated that we sometimes don't give the kind of a kind of appreciation to some of their great players because we feel that they're just part of the system and the system is working for them. So
Yeah,
maybe yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's just my point of view.
yeah, yeah. Good
But yeah,
point.
I mean, coming back to the World Cup now, 99 World Cup, and now getting into the semi-final, Mangesh, I want you to tell me what were you doing on that day before the semi-final? Where were you? Do you have any memories? And did you ever have an inkling that being a neutral game for us, but still, being the cricket fan, the nerd cricket fan that you were, even at that point of time, I'm sure. But did you have an inkling at that point of time that you would probably be watching one of the greatest ODIs of all time?
No, not really. We all knew that it is going to be a great game, but no, we had no idea. I don't think anyone had any idea at that time that we were about to watch for me, the greatest ODI game of all time. And I still remember I was in school at the time, and just remember just soaking it in, watching Shane Warne bowling and watching Glenn McGrath bowling and Donald bowling. I mean, these all not now looking back. If I think about that particular day, I st I still remember how gutted I felt when Australians actually won that game. And because what it first of all, it was a tie. They did not even lose that game,
They did
but
not even,
it was
yeah.
a tie. And I think I did not have a quite grasp of the rules at the time. So what I remember from that winning moment is Australians. Of course, there was a run out in the end, and all of a sudden Australians were started cheering, and I was slightly dumbfounded. What the hell has just happened? This is a tie. Then I realized, oh, this is due to the rules since the South Africans have they have done it in 49.4 overs. Yeah, and was it because of
No,
49.4
no, no, no.
overs?
It was because the
Because of Super
Australians had a
Six.
better run rate in the Super Six.
Super Six, yeah,
Yeah.
because of the Super Six. But at
Mm.
that time, I did not know that at all. So I was completely dumbfounded at the time. I felt really bad about it. And the next day when I went to school, all of our friends were really sad about it. Oh my, we all of us wanted South African to win, and mainly we wanted these arrogant Aussies to lose. But little did we know that it was not this was not the last time we were going to watch them win the World Cup at the time.
Yeah. So before we get into the details of this game, I just like for the benefit of my viewers to know what exactly transpired in terms of the scorecard. So of course Australia batted first and they scored 213
13.
runs. They were all out for 213. Mark Waugh, interestingly, Mark Waugh had made a duck in the semi-final in the 1996 World Cup as well against the West Indies, and he was out for a duck here as well. Gilchrist was out early. So very soon they had lost Gilchrist, Mark Ward, Ricky Ponting, and Darren Lehman. So they were about 68 for 4 when Gilchrist was dismissed, caught at third man of the bowling of Jacques Callis. That's when Steve
Yeah,
Waugh joined Michael Bevan. And
yeah,
once again, Steve Waugh, as I had told earlier, when the chips were down, he really used to
yeah,
dig
yeah,
himself in. So they
yeah,
had a partnership, a slow partnership it was, yes, even from the standard of those days cricket.
yeah,
But it was crucial to get their team into some sort of respectability. So they took the score to 158 before, and this was of 39.3 overs, as I see the scorecard, before Steve Waugh was dismissed. And then regular wickets fell, and it was actually Mangesh a treat to watch. And I would like you to comment a little bit about the late overs bowling by Alan Donald and Sean Pollock, especially Alan Donald when he picked up those two wickets, clean
yeah,
bowling, Damien Fleming and Paul Rifle. Yes,
yeah,
numbers 10, numbers 9 and 10, so nothing to write home about. But peach of television, you should go and check it out on
yeah,
YouTube
yeah, 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 yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
So
but he also got I think Ponting and Darren Levin's wicket.
yes,
Donald also got both of
yes,
their
yes,
wickets,
yes,
right?
yes, yes,
So
yes.
just when we thought that yeah they might pull it off, see this was Donald. Whenever we thought that the batsman is getting into the game, he always got them. He
Yeah.
always got them. That is probably the specialty of players like Alan Donald or Wasim Akram, that they could get informed players out.
Mm.
And for me, I am a huge Alan Donald fan. So if you think about it, Alan Donald made his debut in 92. He was 26 at the time. So just think of the amount of time he lost due to the loss of South Africa, due to the loss of ban on South Africa at the
Yeah.
time. So I think still for quite some time he had 5 wickets per game in Test cricket, and later he got injured, got continuously injured. But for me, Alan Donald was as good as any bowler in his. Alan Donald in his prime was as good as any bowler of his era. He was
Mm.
that good, and I think Sean Pollock was quite new at that time, and I think both of them complemented each other really well. But
Mm.
if I'm not mistaken, it was Pollock and Steve Elworthy who started the bowling,
Yes, yes, it was
and I
Pollock
think
and Steve Elworthy. In
yeah,
fact, Steve
and
Elworthy was
Don
one of the weaklings. It turned out to be one of the
yeah,
weaklings because he's
yeah,
gave away 59 runs of 10 overs,
yeah,
so
yeah,
almost 6 runs per over.
yeah,
But yes, I mean, Mangesh, just sticking to Alan Donald. In fact, I was hearing one of the podcasts. It's called 81 All Out.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah, I
a
know.
wonderfully curated podcast by
Yeah,
three engineers, if I'm not wrong.
yeah,
In fact, one of them, Siddhartha Vaidyanathan, has
yeah.
actually given time to me in one of my episodes. You can check that out as well.
Oh,
So, in that
great, great.
podcast, Mangesh, the Siddhartha and one of his colleagues, they talked about Alan Donald, and the fact that you mentioned about Alan Donald missing a lot of years because of apartheid being there in South
Yeah,
Africa. So his colleague who was there on the podcast, he said that actually Alan Donald was in the late 80s when he was even younger
Yeah,
and could not get to play. He was actually very fast
yeah,
because he was told by some of the other local domestic South African cricketers who faced him in domestic games that he was actually very fast. And by the time he got to play international cricket, his pace had sort of dipped down a bit, which I mean,
yeah,
come to think of it, the kind of pace that he had, it's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah,
But I mean, yeah, that just goes to show how much how fast Alan Donald was. And
yeah,
yes, Sean Pollock. Well, you say he was relatively new, but he was. I think he made his debut in '95, if I'm not wrong. So he
yeah, yeah.
had gotten to 4 or 5 years of game. In fact, he played, if I'm not wrong, the '96 World Cup as well a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, he did.
So
That's
yeah,
right.
he had
That's
the
right. Yeah,
experience, and he picked up 5 wickets in that game.
yeah,
But yes, Steve Elworthy, initially, I think Ricky Ponting to him, playing one of those very famous pull shots that he did, and looked very good on 37 before. It was Alan Donald's first ball of his spell
yeah.
that
Oh,
he dismissed Ponting, caught by Kirsten at, I
yeah,
think it was covers.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, a peach of a delivery to get rid of Darren Lehman, if you remember, Mangesh. It
yeah,
was I mean, it was a bouncer. He just could not sort of get down on the
yeah,
ball, and
yeah.
Darren Lehman was out that day. But yes, I mean, again, talking about Steve Waugh, we've talked a bit about him, Mangesh. But what can you say about Michael Bevan? I mean,
Oh my
highly,
God.
highly underrated. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, he
yeah,
was known as the greatest finisher in ODI cricket till, I guess, until Dhoni came, and Dhoni took
yeah,
that finisher stack to a different level altogether.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
Michael Bevan was more of a nerdler. He would milk the bowling a bit, wouldn't get too many sixes, would get mostly fours. So he scored 65 of 101 balls, so a
yeah,
strike rate
yeah.
of around 64, 65. And Steve Waugh made 58. So how crucial, Mangesh, was that partnership for Australia to get to some sort of respectability?
Oh, yeah, it was very crucial. But if you think of it, Michael Bevan in that era had an average of 54.
Yes,
That's
yes.
that's absolute mad. So that shows every time Australia was in trouble, Bevan almost always delivered. He almost always delivered. And it's not like he could not change the tempo of his game. He could do that. I
Mm.
remember one of his hundreds again, I think it was against South Africa in the ODIs, and he was
Yes.
absolutely fantastic in that game.
It was one of those
So
indoor
he
ODI games, Mangesh, if
exactly.
you
That's
know
right.
about at the
That's right.
Cologne
That's right.
Stadium.
In that
Yeah.
colonial or what
Yeah, yeah, it
colonial
was
stadium,
some
right?
Cologne stadium. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's
yeah,
right. That's right. It was
yeah,
a fantastic inning. So Michael Bevan had that in him. So what has happened after probably advent of T20 is a lot of players they are better hitters. Michael Bevan was not a natural hitter like Dhoni is. So that separates both of them. And so because of this, Bevan probably did not have as much glamour as Dhoni has. Of course, Dhoni has glamour because of a lot of reasons.
mm,
He's an excellent, especially in ODIs, Dhoni is a great captain. But Michael Bevan was one of those sort of unassuming players, and who did his job and went on about doing his job and went on about finishing games, and he was always not out, right? You
mm,
cannot have an average of 54 in that era unless until you are finishing games.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, Michael Bevan was absolutely fantastic player, and I remember there was a debate and about the best ODI players of the time. And for me, it was always Sachin. Everything about Sachin was absolutely wonderful for me. But Michael Bevan was in that comparison. Michael Bevan was part of that debate because he was one of the best players, ODI players at that time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, just I was looking at his record, Mangesh, 232 ODIs, 67 times he was not out, and
Oh
he
God.
scored 6,912 runs, almost 7,000 runs at an average of
Yeah.
53.58. So I mean, across 196 innings to average that much was amazing.
Yeah.
And his strike rate, I mean, although we do talk about him not being a big hitter, but his strike rate was 74 at a time, Mangesh, when I guess 80 to 82 was considered very, very good. So he was
By
not
the way,
too far away.
Saurav Ganguly strike rate is 73.
Yes.
Ganguly strike rate is
Yeah.
73. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean that's a very good point actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean that's important. Just like Ganguly could do it. He could change the tempo of the game as per
Mm,
the situation. So whenever
mm,
he played with Sachin, Ganguly knew just when to just sit back
mm,
and
mm,
when to just go on the offensive. And I
mm.
think Bevan could do that.
Yeah. 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 I
Yeah,
mean, Michael Bevan, once again, fantastic. Under pressure, he was as calm as ice. And I remember Mangesh, even in the 1996 semi-final, I don't know if you would remember this.
Yeah.
West
Of course
Indies
I do.
had Australia on. I mean, Australia's situation was even worse than it was in the semi-final against South
Stuart Law and
Africa.
Michael Bevan.
They were 15 for 4 when
Yeah,
Michael Bevan was joined by Stuart Law.
yeah,
And again, they ended up scoring just about 207. So, roughly
yeah,
similar to what they scored in this semi final.
yeah,
And they won that game in exciting fashion. So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, Michael Bevan, great servant for Australian and world cricket, in fact, with the way he played.
Of course, no doubt.
Yes. So, but apart from that, so there was a collapse at the beginning, and then there was this period of calm and consolidation in the middle. And
Yeah,
then once Steve Waugh got out, Tom Moody got out in the same over. So it was a double wicket over by Sean Pollock.
yeah,
And then a few runs by Shane Warne. He flung his bat in there. Shane Warne actually, when he was a batter, he's quite an
yeah,
entertaining batter, Mangesh.
yeah. Quite an yeah.
I
I
mean, yes,
remember
he
I think
scored
he got.
well. Yeah, I mean, he
Sorry,
scored
sorry.
a 99 in Test cricket, but
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
apart from that, he could really hold his bat.
So I remember watching that 99. I think he scored 99 against New Zealand at Perth.
Yes.
And Shane Warne was an entertainer. Shane Warne was a great fielder. He was a great fielder. He was not just a good fielder. He was an excellent, outstanding fielder. And
Mangesh,
that's
Mangesh. Beg to interrupt you. In fact, sorry, he was such a great fielder that the only position that his captains would make him stay was in the slips. But
that's a
actually,
good
come to
point.
think of it, Mangesh, he actually took some really good sharp
He
catches
took
in the slips.
he took some absolute blinders, to be very honest. See,
Yes, yes.
what happens with great players is, if you talk about great players like Sachin or Wasim Akram or even Shane Warne, they were good at everything they did. So Wasim Akram has scored 257 against Zimbabwe. That was a fantastic inning. So he could bat. I mean, Sachin has taken so many crucial wickets for India in 2001, in 2001 Kolkata Test, in Adelaide in 2004. So these guys had that cricketing intelligence, but they decided to focus on one thing they were excellent at. And maybe so you can make an argument that had Shane Warne concentrated on his batting, he would have been a great batsman. You can make that argument. I'm not saying that that is entirely true. I'm just being facetious, but they had such a great cricketing sense. So even when they are not good at something, they were better than a lot of people give them credit for.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned two things again, just
Yeah,
digressing a bit. So, Wasim Akram's 257,
yeah,
he in fact mentioned about his knock in one of these shows that he does, before every ODI or T20 World Cup with,
yeah,
Fakhri Alam and Waqar Younis. Fantastic show, So, he mentioned about his 257 that he went to one of those, felicitation events in schools, and he mentioned about 257. And there was this young little boy who mentioned, "तो क्या हो गया? अपने Zimbabwe से ही तो बनाया है." you know, he said that you cannot satisfy everyone, and he
yeah,
said that so what? 257 is 257.
yeah.
And when you talk about Sachin Tendulkar in the 2001 series as a bowler, he never fails to remind everyone that he was actually the second highest wicket taker after Harbhajan Singh in that series. Come to think of it, that is amazing. We had Zahir
Yeah,
Khan, we had Venkatesh Prasad, I think we had Ajit Agarkar as well, but
yeah,
it was Sachin Tendulkar who ended up being the second highest wicket taker for India. I mean, that
yeah,
just
yeah,
goes to show how much Harbhajan Singh sort of he was fantastic in that series. Anyway,
yeah,
so coming back to this semi-final, so we saw Sean Pollock picked up five for here, 5 for 36.
yeah.
And everyone else chipped in. Of course, Alan Donald picked up 4 for 32.
Four,
I mean,
yeah,
I still can't forget that over where he clean bowled Paul Rifle and in fact, it was just sort of
yeah,
a, the innings had reached a crescendo, Mangesh,
yeah,
with South Africa and Alan Donald in his absolute prime. So, I mean, those were peach of deliveries, even though they were to the tail enders, but especially Damien Fleming, he had no clue what had happened. The
yeah,
ball
yeah,
just pitched. It was sort of with the angle it was coming in, and
yeah,
just at the last moment, he either played too much inside the line, or the ball just deviated a bit away and
yeah,
took the off
yeah,
stump, and that was fantastic. So,
yeah,
yeah, so we are done with the South Africa with the Australian batting. So they scored 213. So South Africa needed 214 when they came out to bat. And remember, guys, by this time, South Africa had already experienced pain of the 1992 World Cup semi-final defeat under very, very frustrating circumstances of rain. They had won all the league games in the '96 World Cup leading up to the quarterfinal, and then they lost to West Indies, who were at that point in time not a very strong team, but they reached the semifinals. Yeah. So coming into this game, 214 to chase, Gary Kirsten and Herschel Gibbs starting the innings. They had already formed a formidable opening partnership in preceding years, Mangesh.
Yeah,
Herschel
yeah,
Gibbs was someone who made his debut in '96 against India in
yeah.
India when they came for a tour, and he had been coming up as and establishing himself as a good player, and they were 48 for no loss. Yes, the scoring rate was okay. I think by that standards, in about 12 overs, they were 48 for no loss when Shane Warne came. So the
Oh
start
God.
was laid, Mangesh. Yeah.
I still cannot. I will never forget that delivery, Shane Warne's delivery to Herschel Gibbs and later to Gary Kirsten. I mean, that's what the match winners do, right? We were talking about Alan Donald getting players who were quite set, and look, Shane Warne could do that. And that delivery to Herschel Gibbs is, oh my God, that is out of the world. That is something only Shane Warne can do.
Mangesh, I
You,
want you to please describe that ball to our. So, because of copyright issues,
yeah,
as you
yeah,
had mentioned me, Mangesh, so I decided
yeah,
not to share any of the videos. But,
yeah, yeah.
I'll definitely link in some of the YouTube videos that are available of this match. But Mangesh, I want you to describe in your own words what that ball was, and especially to Herschel Gibbs.
Let me do one thing. Let me watch it again before I describe it. Just hold on.
And I must say, if any of you goes back and watch that the replay of that game,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Shane
yeah,
Warne was a man possessed. You could hear, as if you were near him when he was saying, "Come on, come on, come on" to his players.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I'm watching that ball again. What Shane Warne did was, so there was a patch. There was a slight patch on the leg stump, or just outside the leg stump, and he pitched that delivery right on that patch, and it turned and took the bails off. I mean, Gibbs was completely fooled by the flight of his ball, and he had
Mhm.
no chance. He had absolutely no chance. Wow, I mean, you could just Shane Warne was such an artist. So instead of actually describing how the what that delivery was, I urge everyone to just go to their YouTube and watch it. It was that good. It was absolutely peach of a delivery because Herschel Gibbs was completely fooled. And I'm checking, they were 48 for no loss in 12 overs in
Mhm.
a World Cup semi-final. That's a huge deal, man.
Absolutely.
That's
I
a
just
huge
feel
deal.
that the openers must have calmed the nerves down of the middle order.
Yeah,
But then to have that kind of a delivery, and if you look at the greatest delivery of the century, as they say, when Shane Warne bowled,
my
I think it
getting,
was
yeah,
Mike Gatting,
yeah,
it was some sort of a similar delivery, pitching well
yeah,
outside
yeah.
off stump,
Yeah,
sharply turning
yeah,
away, and then taking the off stump or the off bail. I mean, you look at Herschel Gibbs' reaction once he
yeah,
was out. He was thinking, what the hell had happened?
yeah, yeah,
Um, I mean, like I guess the kind of the way he was dismissed, a set batter being dismissed in such a way. So Herschel
yeah,
Gibbs was on 30 of 36 balls, and
yeah,
Gary
yeah,
Kirsten, who ultimately made 18 of 40, he was struggling a bit. So if you look at the initial few overs of the South African innings, it was actually Herschel Gibbs who was making the running. He had
yeah,
hit
yeah,
Damien Fleming and Glenn McGrath for quite a few boundaries. So
yeah, yeah,
I mean, dismissing him in such a way just showed the genius of Shane Warne, and the
yeah,
way the Australians just ran around him, and that showed that yes, they were into this game. And then
yeah,
came, of course, Darrell Cullen into that man. I mean, in that
yeah.
over, and of course, Darrell Cullen being a bunny of Shane Warne in many ways. He was not really looking very comfortable. But then, yeah, he got one over. I mean, he got one wicket in that over, and then the match really changed and really turned in Shane Warne's next over, Mangesh.
Yeah.
He dismissed Gary
Gary
Kirsten
Custom. Yeah.
and
Again,
Hansi Cronje.
another piece of a delivery that again he pitched it right on that rough. Kirsten, I think, tried to sweep it, but he completely missed it. I mean, oh my God, you just need to watch it. You just
Mm,
need to watch
mm.
it.
Yeah, I mean Gary Kirsten, Mangesh, was one of those players who always kept his cool. I mean he was
Yeah,
one of the pillars of South African batting in the '90s. He played long, patient innings in Test cricket. But that particular shot, Mangesh, the commentators at that point of time also was like were pretty critical of him the way he played, because they knew that Shane Warne was going to be a major factor in this innings, and with the fact they were chasing only 214, had they been a bit more circumspect, and especially Gary Kirsten, because that was kind of a wild slog.
Yeah.
Although it was, albeit playing with the turn, the ball was coming into him as a left-hander,
Yeah.
but then to play such a shot on a wicket that was turning, and as you said, the patch being there and Shane Warne exploiting it, it was kind of a shot that you don't expect from a calm guy like Gary Kirsten.
But that shows you what that Australian team was about. Even the guy who was as calm as Gary Kirsten can lose his cool. I mean, so it was like, see, I liked, I thought Kane Williamson, in especially in 2019 World Cup, was that kind of a captain because he frustrated other oppositions. New Zealand in that World Cup, they just did not. They were fantastic. Their fielding was fantastic, and they just made other teams work really hard for their runs. And this is exactly what South of Australians were doing at this in this moment. And another reason could be the pressure of that situation got the better of Gary Kirsten.
Yeah, yeah.
Just imagine Shane Warne bowling with that arrogance and complete sledging all the time. You had Steve Waugh, you had Mark Waugh, you had Aaron Wilkes who just could not stop talking. So probably in such situations, yeah, I mean, even these situations get even the best of players.
Yeah, that's true. I think, yeah, I mean, when you see a guy like Gary Kirsten playing such an outrageous shot on a turning track, showed how much pressure the South Africans felt even after just losing one wicket, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And then came the captain, Hansi Cronje. He had played a pretty good knock, I guess,
yeah.
in the Super Six game. And again,
He was slightly unlucky.
yeah, yeah.
He
So
was slightly unlucky.
it was David Shepherd who was
Yeah,
umpiring from that end, if I'm
yeah,
not wrong.
yeah,
And the ball again, it was full ball, and he
yeah.
tried to play, I think, a shot on the leg side
Oh,
or
leg
maybe
side,
on
yeah.
the offside. The
Leg
ball,
side,
I guess,
leg side, yeah.
hit his boots.
Yeah.
And look at the replays later on, you do feel that he was slightly unlucky. What do you have to say about that decision, Mangesh?
I think it is one of those decisions. Now, since you have all the third umpire and all the privileges in the world, I think it's back in the day. It used to happen. You used to get one odd wicket every match or something like that. I think I'm fine with it. I don't see a point of complaining about umpiring decisions unless until the umpiring was as horrible as Steve Buckness or say Australia in 2000. But
Mm,
apart from that, I mean, these things happen, man. We have we you get it sometimes and you don't. I think
mm,
I wouldn't complain too much about it. So you have no guarantee, even had Cronier stayed on the on the pitch, you have no guarantee that he would have made any runs because Shane Warne was just out of his world. And if you recall, in especially in that 99 and 2000, in that era, there were, except for a couple of Indians, say probably in 99, it was only Sachin, Navjot Sidhu and Azharuddin who could hit Shane Warne off the park.
yeah.
Others could not.
Mm.
So you have no guarantee about Cronier being some kind of messiah at the time. I mean, of course, it's a good thought, but yeah, you never know.
Yeah, yeah. And at the other end, Darren Khan was at
Yeah,
sixes and sevens. He had no clue
yeah,
what was happening. He was under pressure.
yeah,
He made
yeah,
six of 30 balls, and I mean, so they were 12. They were 48 for no loss after the end of the 12th over. And when Daryl Cullinan got out in the 22nd over, Mangesh, there was 61. So in the next 9 overs or so, they had just made about 13 runs, and that is the kind of pressure that the Aussies were putting on.
yeah,
There were very few loose deliveries, and even if there were some loose deliveries on offer, the South Africans had got into that mindset with Daryl Cullinan making just 6 of 30 balls, that they were in a very defensive mindset. And
yeah,
so then I think it was Damon Fleming who bowled a delivery to Jacques Callis, who sort of pushed it onto the offside and came for a run which was probably not there. And I think it was, if I'm not wrong, it was Michael Bevan, yes, who hit
yeah. It
the
was Michael
stumps
Bevan. That's right.
at the keeper's end, and Daryl Cullinan was run out. So
Yeah,
clearly it was visible on the South African faces that they were under pressure, they were
yeah,
panicking, and
yeah,
from a position of relative strength of 48 for no loss, they had slipped to 61 for 4.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this is not why this is called the greatest game, one of the greatest ODI games,
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like the Aussies had a partnership in the middle between Steve Waugh and Michael Bevan, South Africa found Jacques Callis, and
Jaunty Rhodes. Yeah,
that guy, John T. Rhodes. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
uh, what do you have to say about John T. Rhodes? Mangesh, you did mention right at the beginning of this podcast that one of the two really fantastic cricketers of that team for South Africa was John T. Rhodes. So a point about John T. Rhodes, the batter, because Mangesh, we all know about his fielding exploits, but very because his fielding exploits were so great that sometimes his batting sort of went under the radar, and we don't realize that he was actually like the Michael Bevan of South Africa.
yeah, yeah, yeah. See, I thought Jaunty Rhodes was a very stylish batter. He had a fantastic reverse sweep in him. If you recall, there were
Yes.
just couple of other players, except for Andy Flower. No one could hit reverse sweep as good as Jaunty Rhodes. He was excellent with that, and especially when it came to ODIs, like you rightly pointed out that he was just like Michael Bevan for South Africa. Whenever there was a pressure situation, Jaunty Rhodes always performed. And he was one of those guys who was never under pressure. You never saw Jaunty Rhodes in under any sort of pressure. Even in this game, a lot of players were under pressure, of course, but you did not get that feel from Jaunty Rhodes. He was always calm. He was always composed, be it any situation. So yeah, but as you rightly pointed out, we talk about Jaunty Rhodes as a great fielder, but Jaunty Rhodes was an absolutely brilliant batter in the ODIs, especially in the ODIs.
Yeah. And so he scored 43 of 55 balls. So of course, from 61 for 4 in the 22nd over, the next sort of 18 to 19 overs that I'm talking about till the 41st over when John T. Rose got out, they had this partnership which was so crucial for the South Africans. The required run rate was sort of challenging from those standards, but they were
Mm,
sort of maintaining that a bit. They were getting the ones and twos, they were milking. They had gotten South Africa out of the troubled waters and were looking good. Jacques Callis was playing pretty well at that point of time as well. So they were going pretty well. But yes, at no point of time did they really, because of the Australian bowling and the fielding, they never really took the game beyond or really challenged South Africa, I mean Australia, to that extent that they would feel uncomfortable, the Aussies. So that's why I mean when Jonty Rhodes got out for 43 or 55 balls at a strike rate of 78, I want to point that out, Mangesh, because under such immense pressure, he was the one who just sort of took the initiative a little bit more. Although he
yeah,
did
yeah,
score only two boundaries and one six, but the way he ran the ones and twos, and
yeah,
you have to actually go and watch that innings on YouTube to be
yeah,
able to really appreciate the fact that although it was just 43, but of 55 balls at a stage when the South Africans were in a very defensive mindset. So he
yeah,
took them
yeah, yeah,
out of the defensive mindset so that the batters to come later would have some sort of a chance and the required run rate would not spiral too much beyond. I mean, when I say too much beyond, in those days, I guess if the required run rate used to go at 7 to 8, that was like probably the 11s and 12s of today's times.
yeah. That's right. That's right.
So yeah, and a note on Jacques Callis, Mangesh, a fantastic batter
Yeah,
of his
yeah.
generation. So many records he's broken. What do you have to say about that particular innings by Jacques Callis?
Yeah. See, I think he made 50 out of 90 deliveries in that inning.
Yeah.
I mean, it is see, it's the kind of innings that me and you can appreciate, but a lot of people who watch cricket right now will not be able to do that because
Mm,
you have barely have a run rate of strike rate of 50.
mm,
But in that circumstance, it was a quintessential ODI inning of the 90s. The kind of inning that Michael Bevan used to play, Dravid used to play at times. Even Sachin played at times when things were getting out of control. Sachin just stopped hitting and he decided to he a lot of time he used to decide that I'll not lose my wicket. And I mean, as I said, it is a quintessential 90s ODI inning. That's the kind of thing only probably me and you and others who have watched cricket in the 90s can appreciate.
mm,
Because just imagine scoring you have a target of 214 from 50 overs. So you have a required run rate of slightly over 4.
mm,
So in today's day and age, it is absolutely nothing. But if you compare the stadium, if you compare the pitch, compare the bowling attack, compare the weather conditions at the time, it was a huge deal, right?
mm.
So I mean, I see. I prefer watching such low-scoring games because there are so many games. So just to give you an example, not exactly on the same lines, but the inning that Virat Kohli played in the T20 World Cup final,
Mhm.
it wasn't your usual typical T20 inning.
Yeah.
It was like he played like a 90s player. He played like a cultured cricketer. Of course, he's a cultured cricketer, but he played that cultured inning in the T20 final. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you can compare. You can let me know if you agree with me, but you can put this Callis's inning on those lines.
Yeah. Yeah, I just the difference was that if you remember, Mangesh, once Kohli crossed 50, so he ended up making 76.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
those
yeah.
next 26 runs, he ensured that he hit some big boundaries, some big
Of course, of
sixes in
course,
that.
of course, of
So
course, of
which
course.
actually was required at a time when we
Yeah,
had lost Akshay Patel. Probably we had probably he was playing with Shivam Dubey, so
yeah,
who was doing the hitting. But I guess those
yeah,
next 20, had he got out for 50,
yeah, yeah,
because his 50 at that point came, as you said, like in those days of 50 of 92 balls was somewhat what Kohli had scored at that point
yeah,
of time,
yeah,
um, relatively speaking. So I guess that sort of helped India get to that
yeah,
175,
yeah. That's
177 that they
right.
eventually made.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, coming back to this, yeah. So yes, I mean, Jacques Kallis and Jonty Rhodes bailing the South Africans out. So when Rhodes got out, South Africa were 145 for five. So if you calculate in 40.3 overs, so roughly in around 10 overs, they needed a further 70 runs. So
Yeah,
and at that point of time, going at about six and a half, 7 runs per over with only 5 wickets hand was challenging. So the game was in the balance. Australia was still slightly ahead, but then came a very very interesting one over by Shane Warne, which was probably, if I'm not wrong, the last over or his second last over, where Sean Pollock hit him for one boundary and one six.
yeah,
There
that's right.
was there
That's
was
right.
uh, there was a catch dropped of Jacques Callis, and
Yeah,
in that same over, ultimately Jacques Callis was caught.
yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of things happened in that over. Do you remember, Mangesh, the boundary and the six that Sean Pollock hit?
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So we were talking about the pressure getting to South Africans. But if you recall Pollock's six, Paul Raffle dropped that catch. It was an easy catch even by Australian standards, right? It was a very easy catch for Paul Raffle. But I think am I wrong in saying that he
No,
dropped two catches in
I'll
that
tell
game?
you. I'll tell you. So he dropped two catches.
One
One was
was
from Lance
Klusener's,
Klusener
Klusener's
that
six.
that
Yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah,
went that
yeah, yeah.
ended up going to a six. But the one that he dropped was of Jacques Callis. So that
Jack
that
Ellis.
was the
Yeah,
catch that in that over that he dropped.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then the same over, I think Jacques Callis again chipped. So he was trying to chip Shane Warne over Steve Waug's head,
yeah,
in who was, I think, at mid wicket. I mean, sorry, at covers. But yeah, he got it. But Sean Pollock, I mean, the crowd really reached. I mean, the South African crowd, or the people supporting South Africa, they sort of came into life, Mangesh, when Sean Pollock, because till that time South Africa was just on nerdling going here and there. And
yeah,
Pollock provided that bit of punch to that innings, although he
yeah.
scored only about 20, but it was crucial.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's that's right. That's right. But my point being that even Australians were under pressure at the time.
Mhm.
Even
Yes.
Australians were under pressure at the time because of Jonty Rhodes and Sean Pollock and later Lance Klusener, and they could see that the game slipping out of their hands. And of course, we'll talk about the final overs, but there was almost there was a run out. I think Elworthy got run out
Yeah.
if
Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
wrong,
Yes.
and even there was an almost run out before actually the drama of
Yeah.
in the final
We'll
over.
come to that.
Yeah, of course.
We'll come to that. So this was Shane Warne's last over, by the way. So he ended up, but yes, he picked up a wicket also in that crazy over.
Yeah,
So he ended up, bowling 10 overs, four maidens, 29 runs, which would probably have been about 15, 16, had it not been for Sean Pollock hitting him for 10 runs
yeah,
in that over and picking up four wickets. I mean, imagine a guy in a semi-final defending only about 213 for his team, 48 for no loss when he came onto ball and ended up picking 4 for 29. I mean, stuff of genius, Mangesh.
yeah. Absolute genius. So that's why I always say that when people say think that South Africans lost it, I think. on paper, Australians were much better. And if you put just same one in front of any African player, I mean, he was better than every South African player on the pitch. And along with that, he had plenty of other players. Yeah, sorry, but go on.
Yeah, no, no,
Yeah,
I think, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I guess some people like Daryl Cullinan can probably still be having nightmares thinking
yeah,
of
yeah,
Shane Warne.
yeah.
So the game has moved, the innings moved forward now. Sean Pollock, when he got out, the score was 183 in 45.5. Was a fantastic ball, by the way, by Damien Fleming, who was getting the ball to tail in a bit. He was sort
Yeah,
of reverse swinging it a bit. And then Mark Boucher, who was sort of relatively new to international cricket at that point of time. If you still recall his face, was a very boyish
yeah,
face he
boys,
had,
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and he was struggling. He made only 5 of 10. But
yeah.
before he was bowled by Glenn McGrath,
Glenn
and
McGrath, yeah.
Bill Lawry's fantastic commentary that happened in the last few overs. I still remember that very well. He was missing a lot of balls. He was really struggling, and he was not helping the cause of Lance Klusener. So it was a tough time, and then ultimately he was dismissed. Clean bowled, I think it was the middle stump that was knocked out. I mean, Mangesh, we talk about Glenn McGrath. I mean, we haven't spoken about McGrath. So many great players,
Yeah,
but McGrath. I mean, I mean, see, Mangesh, we all associate McGrath with all the experts talk about those typical adjectives that we use. Metronymic, outside the off stump. I mean, of course,
yeah,
when we think of McGrath, we think more of Test cricket, although he had an amazing ODI career. But
yeah.
very, very few people forget that in the death overs at that point of time in the 90s and early 2000s as well, he really had a good record in death overs as well. He had a good Yorker. I mean,
Yeah, he had a
maybe not as
fantastic yogurt.
glamorous as Wasim Akram or
Yeah.
Waqar Yunis, but he never used to get hit too much in the last few overs.
He never got hit too much anyway.
Except,
Yeah,
I
but
guess, that Abdul Razak over, if you remember, in Australia,
yeah,
where
that's
he
right. That's
made
it.
he stuck I think 5 boundaries.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mm.
But I mean, see, when we talk about Glenn McGrath, we will talk about that outside the off stump and that bit. But despite we also forget that McGrath wasn't very quick. He wasn't
Mhm.
very quick.
Mhm.
I think the 80, 82, I don't remember Magra going beyond 82 miles per hour.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, he had that accuracy, and as you rightly pointed out, I would say that Magra is probably one of the best death over bowlers of all time.
I
Is it
mean, I
fair to
mean,
say that?
his Yorkers were
I
just amazing.
now that you have mentioned it, I can't think of any better death over bowler.
See, Mangesh, it was not an era where people were bowling slower balls, slower bouncers,
Yeah,
gripping into the wicket kind of balls. Either you bowl a Yorker or probably you bowl a bouncer. And mostly, I think in the death overs, people used to bowl Yorkers a lot because batters had also not developed to that extent that they did later on, that they could play those rams and just hitting on the onside like AB de
yeah.
Villiers and all. So I guess maybe that time it worked those Yorkers, but McGrath is not given, what I'm trying to say is he was not given enough credit to the way he bowled. I mean, he was very, very economical in ODIs as well.
Yeah, he was extremely economical. I
Mm.
think Magra would have been great even in T20s, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
So when
yeah,
Boucher got out for five, clean ball by McGrath, Steve Elworthy came in, and the very first ball, he got run out, I think. So yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at the scorecard, there was, I guess, yeah, no, no. So the ball that Steve Elworthy received, the first ball, it was sort of a bouncer, which sort of just lobbed away from the gully fielder. So and then I guess Lance Klusener came to the crease with about 2 balls left in that second last over,
yeah,
and I think they needed 18 runs or something like that
yeah,
from the last 8 balls, and he hit a full toss of Glenn McGrath. So again, Glenn McGrath, when you're bowling a Yorker, if it goes wrong, that's the difficult art of bowling a
yeah,
Yorker. If
yeah.
it goes wrong, it
It is
becomes either a
full
full
toss, yeah.
toss or it just becomes like the perfect half volley for the batter to hit. So
Yeah,
it was a full toss. Lance Klusener actually didn't connect it very well.
Yeah.
So it was Paul Rifle. I pity that guy. He was he was clean bowled by Alan Torrell. Didn't really have that great a bowling time. Although I mean, yes, he bowled 8 overs for 28 runs. So it wasn't that he had a terrible game with the ball, but he had already dropped a catch of Jacques Harris, and this was crucial, Mangesh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He sort of went for the ball high up in the typical Australian way,
Yeah.
dropped it, and everyone was eager to know whether the ball had crossed the boundary line or had dropped just before. And if you look at David Shepard's reaction, also, normally umpires are supposed to be cool and neutral and really not get involved into the game, but the way David Shepard also looked, it was crucial, and then it was referred to the third umpire to see whether it was a six or a boundary. It just added to the whole drama of the situation at that point of time.
And I mean, see, even while we were watching that game, I remember feeling anxious. Oh my God, you can, I mean, again, Australia is going to do it again. But when you saw that Lance Klusener was on his that typical usual form, like he was in '99 World Cup, you actually started believing. You
Yeah.
and to think about it, South Africa after they were, I think, 8 for 196. I'm just looking at the
Yes.
scorecard.
Yes.
8 for 196, they had
Mm.
no right to be in that game at all. Just imagine being 8 for 196 against Australians of Glenn McGrath, Damon Fleming, and Shane Warne. But it was
Mm.
Lance Klusener who started just swinging his bat,
Mm.
and with a bit of luck and with the help of Paul Rifle, and he could have actually done it. He could
Mm.
have actually done it, man.
I mean, so just imagine they didn't have any wickets in hand at that point of time when
Yeah,
Rifle dropped the catch. So
yeah,
had he
yeah,
taken the catch, the match would have been over that time.
yeah.
But
The
then
game
the
was
next
over.
ball, he hit a McGrath ball to the onside. The perfect result for South Africa at that point of time, because obviously he came back to strike in the next over. Alan Donald was on the non-strikers end. It was Damien Fleming. Remember, guys, those of my age who remember probably the '96 World Cup. Again, some similarities that I'd like to point out. Damien Fleming was the one who bowled the final over then as well. So he was there bowling the final over, and Mangesh, if you remember the first two balls,
Oh
so
my
Damien
God.
Fleming came around the wicket
Yeah.
and was probably, I don't know what he was trying to do at that point of time,
Again,
but
he was
he
trying to.
just
I think he was trying to bowl a Yorker. I think.
could be, yeah.
Yeah, he
But
could have.
but
Yeah, yeah,
those
and
Mangesh, those two
true.
boundaries. So
Yeah,
nine needed of the last over, bang bang 4-4, and South Africa were level. But I
yeah.
mean, that's not the whole story,
Of
those
course.
two shots, Mangesh, they still to this day, when you
Yeah.
watch those shots, probably, and this Mark Waugh and many others have actually said on record that those two are the hardest hit boundaries that they've ever seen. And I remember, Mangesh, Mark Waugh was standing at long off, and this was the second of the two boundaries I'm talking about. He barely had a few meters to his right to move, but the speed with which Lance Klusener had hit the ball, I mean, you could just imagine how hard it must have been that Mark Waugh had no chance. Any memory of those two boundaries, Mangesh, for you?
See, I remember one thing. So Lance Klusener's bat was the heaviest in the cricket world at the time. Because if I'm not wrong, Sachin's bat was, I think, 1 kg 420 grams or something. I don't recall. And Klusener's bat was heavier than that. And if you recall, he used to play with that high backlift, and to
Like a
hit that ball
baseball player.
like a baseball player, right?
Yeah.
And to hit that ball through, I think he drove it through covers.
Through covers,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, through course.
Yeah.
I mean, it was absolutely absolutely brilliant. See, as a 12-year-old kid who was watching that game, and I mean, I had completely lost of, oh my God, what's going to happen now? And after watching those two boundaries, all of us were certain that South Africa are back in the game and South Africa is going to win. We were that certain, but that first, especially the first boundary, was absolutely brilliant, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain shots. So if you recall, Sachin Tendulkar's straight drive to Bratley. If you recall that he did it in 2008 and we had target
Yeah.
of about 160, you
Yeah.
can watch that shot again and again. It was perfection, and Sachin just hit it, and he was just okay, yeah, just no, normal shot, and that's about it. He went on about his business, and when Kluser hit that. we felt the same. Oh, come on, just one boundary done. Yeah, just I have a chase to do, another boundary, and let's get on with the game. He had that sort of attitude. He was completely in that zone. So yeah, I mean, I remember that about that game, that Klusener made everything look possible. He made everything look possible.
Yeah, yeah, and in the commentary were actually there are two productions that you can watch on YouTube. One was by BBC, and one was I
Channel
guess for the
9.
international feed. The BBC
Was
had
it Channel
Simon
9?
Mann and somebody else, but the one that really you should watch is the one where Bill Lawry and Mike Proctor were commentating.
Oh, right,
So
right, right.
one was the
Sky.
South
This
African
must
point
be
of view,
Sky.
one was
Skies, yeah.
the Australian point of view.
Yeah,
And I mean, what a great commentator Bill Lawry was,
yeah,
Mangesh.
yeah,
A small word on him before we get to the last two balls, because
yeah,
he created that kind of atmosphere which very few commentators would match. Probably Tony Greig to some extent, but Tony Greig was on a slightly different level, I would say. Bill Lawry, there was a bit more of gravitas in him.
yeah.
The way he commentated, and just that whole drama that was unfolding at that point of time. Just a word on his commentary and any memory of him, Mangesh, for you.
So if you recall from India's 2004 series, when Irfan Pathan bowled out Adam Gilchrist in that fourth test at Sydney, and I remember watching it. I think Ravi Shastri was on the commentary at the time, and yeah, Ravi Shastri went wild when Pathan bowled that delivery. And after probably a couple of days, they used to show that game again and again with different commentaries. And again, at that time, I saw Bill Lawry commentating on that game. Again, Bill Lawry went completely wild, just like Ravi Shastri. But but as you rightly pointed out, he had so much gravitas in his voice that even his going wild felt like, he's so classy, man. He's
Yeah.
so classy. It
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
that. And what Channel 9 had at the time, that they used to have right combination of commentators. It was always Laurie going nuts, and on the other hand you had someone
Tony
like
Greig.
someone
Yeah.
Tony Gregg was someone who
Mm,
used to go nuts, right?
mm,
But with Tony Gregg
yeah.
you had Ian Chappell.
Yeah.
With Bill Laurie you had uh,
Yeah. Richie Beno. Yeah.
With Bill
Yeah.
Laurie you used to have Richie Beno. So I
Yeah.
think that Channel 9 got that combination right.
Mm.
You never had two commentators going nuts like we have while watching IPL.
Let's not even take the
Let's not
names
even
of
get
the.
there.
Let's not even take the names of these commentators in the same breath. Yeah. But fantastic. I mean, without those two commentators, so Mike Proctor was sort of a
South
slightly more
Africa.
calm guy,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he was giving the perspective from the. So when Lance Klusener hit those two
Just,
boundaries,
just,
he
yeah,
was
just one more point for
yeah,
for those who do not know.
yeah,
Mike Proctor is one of the best one of the best all-rounders of all time. If not for South African ban, he would have been on par with the likes of Ian Botham and Imran Khan and Kapil Dev and Richard Hadley. He was that good. Yeah, yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
go
No,
on.
I think a
Yeah.
very well mentioned point and relevant as well, because just recently I mean I interacted with the former South African cricket commentator Trevor Quirk. I mean
Okay.
those who remember the Titan Cup of
Nah,
1996,
nah. Yeah, yeah. Of course, of
and
course.
even the South Africa tour of India that sort of followed
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
He was one of the few good voices, very famous voice of South African cricket for a long period of time. So I had an interaction with him some time back, and he actually mentioned. So I talked about Barry Richards, Mike Proctor, a lot of, and
Yeah,
he actually said exactly the same words, Mangesh, that you're saying now. That had it not been for the apartheid, Mike Proctor would probably have also been one of the greatest
yeah,
South African batters
yeah, yeah.
and all rounders, as you said. But yes, so those two were commentating, and when Lance Klusener hit those two boundaries, Mangesh, Mike Proctor really sort of had life again in his being, and he was getting very excited, Bill Lawry did not forget to remind him that if a wicket falls now, because it's a tie, Australia will go through. So now,
Yeah.
Mangesh, I want you to take up the next two deliveries. What happened and how this match finished?
Uh, See, again, when people say that South Africans bottled it, and Klusener did not, Donald did not run on the final delivery, on that fourth delivery, people forget what happened on that third delivery. Alan Donald was under pressure. He tried running, and at the same time, Darren Lemon, who was otherwise a reliable fielder, I wouldn't call him a great fielder, but who was a reliable hand, he missed that throw. It wasn't a difficult throw. It wasn't the easiest throw, but it wasn't a difficult throw. And this is the kind of throw you don't expect an Aussie to miss.
To miss.
Yeah. So my point is, even that game was getting to Australians. The situation was very difficult for Australians as well. Maybe instead of say instead of Lehman, if there had been Ponting or Mark Waugh, they probably would have got it, but Lehman could not at the time. So that situation was it was a complete pressure cooker situation, and Donald was in hurry of finishing that game, and it almost cost him. And looking back, I feel it would have been much better had he gone out on that delivery instead of getting out on fourth. It would have been much better.
No, so as I think Mangesh, I would also like to say so. I still remember Mike Proctor's words when they were showing the replay, and Donald had that smirk on his face, that he'd just gotten out of jail and he had survived that run out. And
Yeah.
Mike Proctor said, "Oh my God, that's the difference between a World Cup win, a World Cup final, or nothing." So on those in those words, like the next ball started with Damon Fleming. So by the way, Damon Fleming, after being hit for two boundaries, coming around the wicket, he had shifted to over the
Over
wicket
the
now.
wicket. Yeah. Yeah.
So now Mangesh, take this up. The final ball of this semi-final. Take this up.
Oh my God. Again, David Fleming bowls a fuller delivery. Klusener hits it. And now, on this delivery, Klusener is in a hurry. Maybe he was under pressure because of what happened on the third ball, because at that point, he thought that Donald would run right away, but Donald did not. And it's so crazy to think that they still have two more deliveries. They could have waited at the time. But in such pressure cooker situations, the pressure gets to see the kind of pressure Kluser might have felt at the time. Me and you will never face it in our entire bloody lives. We are never going to face that. So at times when people say that a particular cricketer bottled it, I mean, yeah, we don't know what they go through. And we will never experience it. We will never reach the level at which they play. And so, yeah, I'm a bit wary of criticizing cricketers for, say, hitting a bad shot or, say, sort of bottling it. But I think that delivery is probably the most heartbreaking delivery I have ever seen in my life. It was that. So probably, I would say it is the second most heartbreaking delivery I have seen in my life. The first being when Saklin Mushtaq bowled that wrong one to Sachin Tendulkar in Chennai Test in '99. And oh my God, I will never forget it. I will never forget that game. It was, I felt so low. But coming back to this game, but
I think
probably,
Mangesh, we must do an episode on that game as well. We'll do that
yeah,
sometime later.
yeah, we'll do that for sure. But just imagine you are one stab away from immortality, and in within seconds you're nothing. You're absolutely nobody. And if you recall, Klusner ran, Donald did not. And even after getting out, just Klusner just kept running. He just kept running towards it because it felt like he just did not want to be there. He just wanted to get out of the situation, and he wanted to get out of. I mean, the Aussies went completely nuts. They started celebrating, and again, Klusner was walking, and later he was followed by Donald. It was a really heartbreaking scene. I don't think I have. See, of course, we were emotionally invested in that game. I would not say we were not emotionally invested in that game, but we were nowhere near invested in that game. If when India is playing, or for me, someone like Man United is playing, I'm really into that game. I wasn't that emotionally invested, but it felt really bad. It felt so bad. You tell me what were you doing when that exact moment happened?
No, I mean, so of course, I was just like any other cricket fan in India. I was watching it on television. And so when Lance Klusener hit the ball, it went to Mark Waugh. Mark Waugh tried to underarm it. I don't know whether he was trying to make a direct hit or give it to Damon Fleming. So he missed
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Damon Fleming, for all that we talk about him being hit for two boundaries, he had the presence of mind, Mangesh, to actually then roll it like in bowling we do, just roll it back
Yeah, yeah,
to Glenn I mean to Adam Gilchrist,
yeah.
and I mean, you talked about Lance Klusener not being wanting. So as the camera, because in those days, Mangesh, the crowds would come onto the field.
Yeah,
There were no barriers at that point of time, and of course, so when the match finished, the crowd started coming in. They wanted to take a stump or whatever souvenir they can. And Lance Klusener, as he's sort of going out of the frame of the television, that last moment we see, so he's being escorted by a security guard when he's going back to the field, back to the dressing room. And as he's coming out of the frame, that's the moment when he actually looks back and sees what is Alan Donald doing, or what. I mean, till that time, I think it just sort of, he was
he zoned
blanked
out.
out
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Come
yeah.
to think of it, Mangesh, probably, I mean, retrospectively, as you say, we can say a lot of things, but probably, after hitting the second boundary, they, when they saw the finishing line inside, they could have probably spoken and talked to each other that we won't take any unnecessary risks till the fifth ball of the over, so that by the time, if we don't get the single of the next three balls, anyway, we have to run then of the last ball to get a win. But I guess that communication never happened.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I mean, it's easy
again,
to say now for
yeah,
us
yeah. It's
sitting here
I mean,
doing a podcast, but as you said, that under that extreme severe pressure that we can never experience for the rest of our lives, it's something. I mean, Alan Donald was asked in one of the shows in South Africa, Mangesh, about what he felt about that game, and he said that he had to take help of a psychologist.
yeah, yeah.
And so they say in psychology that there is a term called flooding. So
Hmm.
so flooding of
To
memories
watch it
is
again
is
and
what.
again. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, watch it again
yeah,
and again and again so
yeah,
that you get it out of your system. So
yeah.
probably he watched it again and again and again, but till now he says that people haven't sort of they haven't made him forget about this, and they haven't pardoned him in a sense about what happened. But just imagine, I mean, that's South Africa, where cricket is not even the number one sport. Had it been an Indian player, what
Oh
it
my
would
God.
have been.
But see what that game did was it cemented South Africa's position as some kind of eternal bottlers, and I think it's a bit unfair to them, those players, because see, as to j- if you want to judge a team, you need to judge that team. In this sort of, instead of judging them on a micro level, we need to judge them on a macro level. So if you talk about say 2003 World Cup final, we can make so I mean we have I mean we used to talk about so many things. So Ganguly should have placed someone in the gully on the first ball and whatnot. We should have picked up. We decided to bat or something like that because Ganguly won the toss in the final, if you recall. But
Yeah.
if you look at the overall team, there was no way Indian team was going to was going to beat Australia in 2003 World Cup final. I think I have that kind of sense about this game that
Mm.
I mean, South Africa or Klusener placed them in a position that they had no right to be in. I mean, just imagine they were 48 for no loss, and Shane Warne comes in and reduces them to absolute bits. So, I mean that was the kind of team South Africa was playing against, a real champion team. And again, if you talk about retrospective analysis, Australia went on to win two World Cups after that. And in those 99 to 2007, 2009, in those 10 years, they were absolutely unbeatable. So it was start of something new that we did not realize it at the time. And I feel bad for South Africans, and they get a bad name. So see, and one thing I always feel that uh, for succeeding in any big tournament, you need to be in that position again and again. Australians were in that position in '96 World Cup. They won that thriller against West Indies in the semi-final, and they lost the final. So
Mm.
they had tested the defeat. They knew how to what their weaknesses were. They had some sort of reference to work on.
Mm.
South Africans did not. And just imagine, I mean, the unfortunate this entire unfortunate saga of match fixing. Just imagine if Cronia was not in match fixing. The next World Cup after 99, the next World Cup was in South Africa in front of
Yeah.
their home crowd.
He would
And
have
one
been the
thing,
captain, I guess.
he
Yeah.
would have been captain. And
Yeah.
Cronia was really good at picking the right players and getting the best out of them. Just imagine Cronier in 2003. Uh, I, I, I think South Africa would have been a much better team in 2003. I'm not sure if they would have beaten Australia again, because Australia were just they had reached just another level. But in 2003 World Cup, I reckon South Africa playing in front of their own crowd, they could have reached the final at least. So
Yeah.
you never know how things would have played out. But I feel, see, just imagine when we won the World Cup in 2011, we had already reached the final in 2003.
Three. Yeah.
So we had the same core of players. That
Mm,
would have been the same case in 2099 South Africa and 2003 South Africa.
mm.
So they would have learned their lessons in 99, and they would have, maybe they would have applied themselves more. They would have, I don't know, they would have deployed different tactics. But again, that is for me one of the greatest what ifs in cricket. You don't know what would have
Absolutely.
happened. Yeah.
Great, fantastic. So with this, we come towards the end. So those who know the 4-3-8, 4-3-4 game should go back and watch the highlights of the 2-1-3 game. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, with Mangesh, I think I would not have found a better person than Mangesh to talk about this fascinating game and his viewpoint, his analysis, his memories of that game. So thank you so much, Mangesh, for giving your time, and I hope you guys have had a fantastic time enjoying and watching this episode that as much as I have had hosting it. So thank you so much, Mangesh. I hope to have you again on another day, maybe the 1999 India-Pakistan Test match or some other
Yeah,
great game. Because
yeah.
that's what on this channel we just don't want to go about IPL, but really bring back some memories from some fantastic games of this beautiful sport of cricket. So thank you so much, Mangesh, and hope to keep in touch with you.
Thank you so much, Siddharth. Thank you for having me.
Till the next episode of the SNS Cricket Diaries, take care. Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Bye.